Hello, this is Dale, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Oh, Mike's from England now. All right.
Yes.
It, One of the reasons I really wanted to do this show was that we have these meetings on Thursday. It's where the county commissioners do all of their real business. And then they have the ceremonial falderall on Wednesdays where they almost always vote in favor of what they've already decided. And they insist, oh, that's not ceremonial. Yes, it is. Don't lie to us about that, too. That's a small thing to lie. Why bother? What we've done in the past is I'll go down through the list of the things that happen on Thursday. Now, Mike is a bit at a disadvantage because he's not there at the meeting, and so most of these things are new to him, and that just doesn't seem fair. But that's balanced out by the fact that I'm the one that had to sit through 2 hours of meeting,
Hey,
and Mike.
I'm totally okay with the arrangement we have. That's just fine. You're the war correspondent, and I'm the guy in the studio in New York. I'm down with it.
Okay, but we're going to put that off till Sunday and talk about that on Sunday. Tomorrow, no, wait a minute. Yeah, tomorrow we're going to be talking with Bill Hunker.
Mm,
That'll be interesting.
right.
Saturday, we're going to talk to Sandy Casanelli.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Now,
Uh,
I don't like to talk about who's coming up next because never quite sure. I mean, you would never do this with, like, say, the sheriff, not because he's not dependable, but because something could happen. He could be quickly called
right.
out of town.
Right.
It's unlikely that Sandy's going to quickly be called out of town unless there's a big store a sale.
Yes,
Probably.
she'll be happy to hear that you're
But
outing her as a shopper.
But she's very thrifty, which is one of the reasons she made a good commissioner. Why are we spending this
Oh,
kind of money when we could get it for half price?
right. No, my wife is exactly the same way, and it's a little bit dangerous because if my wife happens to find yarn on sale, there's going to be trouble. So,
And commissioners are always looking for more yarns. Oh, never mind. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that today, but there's a couple other things that happened, and I thought, really need to talk about this. One of them was, and you're going to like this, I think. Well, sort of the nerdy among you will like this. Apparently, every 2 weeks, which is semi-monthly, bi-weekly, it's one of those. I think it's both of those. Um, we're going to play back for you the legislative update from our guys that are in Salem because they do a conference call with the commissioners. Did you know this? And they've just started doing it again. And so we'll put that on one of our shows here so you can see and hear for yourself what Carl Wilson, and nice to hear from this guy, wondered if we ever would again, and Herman Bertschiger, and they'll tell all of us. I don't think they realize they're telling all of us, but they'll tell all of us what the latest news is from Salem and what we can expect. Hey, okay. So we'll be playing that for you at some point, and probably not as part of this show, but as a separate thing. And then we'll also talk about uh, what happened at this Thursday administration meeting, admin workshop. But I wanted to tell you about the meeting they had today, the special public relations meeting they had with Mall, Foster, and Alonji about who were the contractors, along with Munitor, the people that were doing the abatement, all these big words, for the Dimmick Tower. So I
both
went
of
to.
those company names sound like some company names that you'd hear in a spy novel or something that were conspiring with evildoers or whatever.
Well, that was one of the questions. Was this some kind of conspiracy? Because you may recall that Simon Hare told us it was at one of the little backroom meetings. Oh, we accidentally miscounted the number of floors in the Dimmick Tower, and now it's going to cost us as much as $100,000 because of that. And at least one of the commissioners looked at him like, "What?" Well, that was Keith Eck, and you could have told Keith twice, and he'd still say, "What?" Um, But Keith said, well, no, wait a minute. Wouldn't that be the responsibility? See, let's suppose that somebody in the county was responsible for miscounting. Really, are they going to count our funds right if they can't count one, two, three, four?
That's my
Oh, yeah.
response.
Of course, the answer is, of course they will. Trust us, we're government. And so they said, well, but there's nothing we can do about it because the contract that was written up by Steve Rich, our former county attorney, according to Simon Hare, who's running the show here, that contract is written up so tightly that there was nothing we could do about it. And the fact that Munitor, with Mall, Foster, and Alonji on top of them, the fact that they came out with their own inspectors and looked at this building and apparently counted 3 floors instead of 4 also, and then bid on the contract, well, there's nothing we can do because the contract that we signed does not allow us to take any action against people who are not doing the right thing. Really? 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 This was the story they told, and you can see the videos for yourself. Okay, so I go to this PR thing hoping I can ask one question of one person. No, one question of one person. That's much better. And that's whoever shows up from Munitor. These are the guys that actually did the demolition.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask him one question. I'm not interested in talking to the suits from Mall, Foster, and Alonji. And Mall, Foster, or Alonji that didn't show up. Not interested in talking with them. I want to talk with what I'm hoping was the honest guy where the boots are on the ground. Munitor. So the whole thing is over. They're patting each other on the back. Oh, everybody is wonderful. Everything is awesome. Isn't it cool when you're part of a team? And so I go over to the side to start to talk with this guy from Munitor. And I said, could you spell your name for me? And it's kind of funny. All this is inside baseball. You know that it is. Why are you watching this show? It's supposed to be a little bit funny and a lot of inside baseball. And covering the details, because it's not enough to do a story about the fact is I'm standing there talking with the guy, the fellow from Channel 12. Remember the infamous Channel 12 that made up the story about Simon Hare? Well, this guy from Channel 12 comes over, and I'm talking with this guy here. And the guy from Channel 12 comes over like this, right? Well, I've got some questions to ask you. And I'm saying, hey, give me a little bit of a break. As you can see, I have a camera pointed to him, and I'm talking to him. Camera pointed at him, and I'm talking to him. He's like, oh, sorry. So anyway, he still asked his question. Well, okay, whatever, So you try to be polite, even though hey, I don't get it. Anyway, so I say to the guy, so about this thing about miscounting the number of floors. And he gives me this look like, really? What? Now, over a period of time, you kind of get to the point where when you ask somebody a question, you can kind of tell that they didn't think you were going to ask them that, but they know it's the truth. And
Right.
then when you ask them a question and they're completely surprised, they have a different look on their face. So the first question I asked the guy is, I said, you've just talked about the fact that there was all of this material that could be recycled. Uh-huh. Isn't that exciting? Yeah, that's really exciting. Now, who gets the money from all that recycled material from our building?
Yeah.
That's when I got the first look, like, oh, I hadn't really thought that anyone would ask that question.
Yes, because in today's world, you're supposed to get a whole bunch of kudos for recycling because it's the right thing to do. But nobody's supposed to care about proprieties in terms of money and who gets it. And I would assume that probably our commissioners just think, well, that's just junk. So who cares? I'm glad they're recycling it, but we don't want any money for it. I mean, this is
our stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
this came from our building. What do you mean? You get to recycle it and then you get to pocket the money. Look, this happened with Rogue Valley Television, RVTV, the people who had literally stolen from us. Now, how can you say that, Dale? Why you get in trouble? No, I can't, because they admit it was the truth. They didn't use the word stolen, but I mean, They bought the equipment, and then they kept the equipment. We didn't get it. That's stealing. It's using your money and keeping it. So they were running for a long time. They were running and doing a better job than the IT department does at the county. We did the best job because we never ever made a mistake. Knock on wood. But the thing is that when they were running, I'm going slightly afield. It's okay. It's a free show. They're always complaining. To stop complaining. It's free. So they were running our county's cable TV access. Boring, but they were selling time on our channel. It's a non-commercial channel. It's cable television. It's county cable television, and they were selling commercials, flat-out commercials, on our station and pocketing the money.
Yeah.
And when I wrote a letter to the editor, to the Courier, pointing this out, they changed it so it didn't say they were running infomercials, that they were running programs. So I looked like I was complaining about the fact that RVTV was running programs. What do you think they would be doing? No, they were running infomercials and sometimes commercials, and they were getting paid for it and pocketing the money. And I told the commissioners, I told our legal counsel, Steve Rich,
Right. Well, the thing is that the value of the Dimmick Tower to the commission is that it's something to pat yourself on the back for. I mean, Simon Hare, it's the symbol of his entire time in office is the fact that they tore this building down. It seems like such a little teeny thing to me. So you told somebody to tear a building down and they did it. So what? Who cares?
Well, and another thing to kind of add into that is they've said a couple of times, well, once this is over, then what happens? Well, we don't know. We don't know. No, we don't have any plans yet. Wait a minute. You don't have any plans? So there was one person there from at this Love Fest. I'm sorry, at this public relations extravaganza. No, wait, at this informative meeting. One person from the general public, and that guy used to work there. And then there were two media people, somebody from Channel 12 and me. No, the Courier wasn't there. Why would the Courier go to something like this? And of course, KJO wasn't there. They're not media. Okay, so not really. And then there was a bunch of, happy people from different agencies in the area just think that tearing down a building is fantastic. But they don't have any plans. And there was this artist rendering of what could happen. And the guy from the public said, oh, is that what it's going to look like? I said, no. And he says, well, what do you mean, no? I said, well, that's an artist rendering, but they don't know what they're going to do. What do you mean they don't know what they're going to do with it? They don't know what they're going to do with it.
Well, no, they just needed to, put this one, in the win column. And I personally, I think, I don't understand all the hoopla about tearing down a building. Part of it was it costs a lot of money to tear it down. That's number one. That's one of the reasons why they're making a big deal out of it. The other thing is that it's needed to have been done for a long time and wasn't done by previous commissioners. Okay, so what? So what? So you tear the building down and you get on with business. But here's the thing. The reason why they're making such a big deal about this is because they don't have anything else. They don't. This is the big deal because there's nothing good that they're doing that's of note. So this is a big deal because we tore this building down. I just.
Well, I think it's a perfect symbol. I think it's the perfect symbol of this administration that they tear a building down and now let's have a parade. Okay, all right, but you keep pulling me off of my topic. Stop pulling me off of my topic, Mike.
Oh, well, get on with it, for crying out loud.
Oh, well, you just keep stopping me. So here's the thing. So I asked the guy the first question, and he gets that look on his face where you can see Yeah, he knows it's true, but he was kind of not counting on anybody asking that question. Okay, so I asked him that, and he said, well, they're going to pocket the money. Then I asked him the second question, and after a while, you get to the point where you can see where somebody looks genuinely surprised. And I said to him, so about this thing about there being 4 floors and you had bid on 3, and what I was going to try to say is, what's your explanation of how you got out of bearing any responsibility for that? So I start off in the story, and he says, what do you mean 4 and 3, and what are you talking about? And there's a guy from Mall, Foster, and Alonji who's dying to jump into this conversation, but I didn't ask him any questions. So he jumps in anyway, right in the middle of me talking with this guy. And he says, well, that's just not true. And I said, look, I am only relating what the commissioners told us. Yeah, well, that can't possibly be true. I said, this camera. Now, I am paraphrasing, okay? I didn't say exactly this, and I sure didn't hold up 5 fingers, okay? But basically what I'm saying to him is, this camera is an inanimate object. All we do is point the camera at the commissioners, and then they talk. And that's more than enough to catch them saying things that don't make any sense to anybody. And I said, so your argument about is this true or not true is with the commissioners, because this is what they told us. Now, you know that's what they told us. This guy's from out of the area, and apparently he doesn't know. Somebody's not telling the truth. I don't know who it
Hmm.
is.
So could it be the company that did the work wasn't privy to any controversy about floors at all?
If you would see this guy's expression, you could tell. I believe we can tell that they were totally floored by this
Yes.
argument that
Mm.
there was any kind of cost overrun. Now, you may all recall. I'm going to look at the title of over my shoulder here. Hare pretends that federal agency inspections were actually what added to the cost. Actually, what added to the cost of Dimmick. Those are his words. So
Hmm.
I said to the guy, "Are you aware that Simon Hare has also been telling people that the EPA and some of these other federal agencies, when they did their inspections, that that's what actually added to the cost?" And he looked at me like I was crazy.
Wow. So did he offer his own explanation as to, well, I mean, obviously he thought that wasn't true, so did he offer any alternative?
No, no, and that's a long introduction to what I wanted to talk about tonight.
Mm.
Okay, so 2 years ago, during the 2013 levy attempt, the one where Lisa Shipley just got outed on that, on how she was telling veterans that if they didn't vote for the 2013 levy, that there might not be any veterans office anymore, which is a complete lie. And it's the case because since it didn't pass, the veterans office is still open. She was telling these older folks that they needed to worry about whether there'd be a veteran service office. 2013 election, I got approached by the DA, keeping in mind that the DA are just, it sounds like I'm off subject. I'm not. I'm not being pulled off subject anymore by Mike. And well,
Okay. I'll try and restrain myself.
yeah, really, try, yeah. So he came up to me. Now, keep in mind that the DA had been telling everybody, we're so busy, we're so swamped, we don't have enough people, why there aren't enough hours in the day to do my job. But he was literally going door to door during work hours to convince people to vote for the levy. I guess he did have time after all. Anyway, so he sees me on the stairway and he says, why are you against the levy? I'm surprised he even knows who I am. So I said, well, if you want to know. And I started telling him about some of the things that had been said at meetings. And he first looks at me like, what? And then I tell him another one. And he goes, what? And I said, well, that can be seen on a video called blah, 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 blah. I have them on the top of my head. Well, I live with this stuff. You know that I do. And then he says, well, no, wait. And I said, well, there's more. And then there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And after a little bit, you could see his face change. And I don't think it was that he wasn't believing me. It was I either have this guy I'm talking to, Dale Matthews, either has to be a stark raving loon that's a consummate actor, or He's telling me things that just completely don't fit within my lifetime experience, and I don't like it.
Right. I've seen that look before.
Whoa. Now, see, we see this all the time. You don't, because watching this show, there's a potential that you are believing, which you've seen with your own eyes. But, there are plenty of people who don't. I've sat in meetings in a little back room where there are a couple of citizens, usually not, but they're sitting there and they'll watch something happen, and I'm taping that thing happen. So they're eyewitnesses. And then after the fact, I say, so what do you think about that? Think about what? I said, well, the thing that he said. What thing that he said? Who? And I said, well, he just said, I have been lying and cheating you from the beginning. They never said it like that, but I mean, something like that. And then there's a tape, and then people are talking about it. And this person who was sitting there just doesn't recall it. I think really just doesn't. It doesn't fit with their worldview. It's just, it doesn't fit. They can't accept it.
Yeah. No, I've seen that a number of times, but part of that is due to the fact that they don't really have enough information. In other words, they're not plugged into this stuff enough to see things meshing together, like the little pieces of knowledge that you have about this, that, and the other thing. And when you see somebody, putting those things together, you're able to put it together. Many other people are just sitting there and they're watching a baseball game as though they just got here from Mars.
Well, also you've got your politically belligerent people, and Mark Gatlin is a perfect example. So I'm at this meeting, and a couple of you have heard me say this story before, and I'm talking about Rob Brandis. I repeat his name because he said if I ever repeated his name, I'd be in a lot of trouble. And Rob Brandis with the Public Works Department, you all recall, oh, don't tell me the story again, where we go down to take a look at some vehicles. We're on an official inspection tour from the county commissioners. Okay, not paid. We never get paid for anything. We're doing it for altruism. You know what that means. And so just before we arrive, his staff, or he or somebody, is going around changing the license plates on the vehicles. And we get there and we say, but that's not a light blue Ford pickup. Yeah, well, this is the one. No, that's not the one. Well, we needed to change. Why did you need to change the tags? Well, I want you to look at this one, but this isn't what you said needed to be replaced. Well, that one's on the road. It's on the road. You said it was too dangerous to drive. Okay? Now, so I tell this. I didn't think I'd laugh during this show at all, because this is dang serious. So stop making me laugh, Mike. So, okay. So I'm telling this to the county commissioners. Mark Gatlin gets up after me. Now keep in mind, Mark has never heard of this before. He's never seen the tape. He hasn't talked to Rob Brandis about this. He's never heard me mention this like 5 years in a row. It came up again because they were talking about this general subject. And so I bring it up. So Mark Gatlin gets up right after me and he says, this kind of thing is scurrilous. Which means that it's, what's the meaning of scurrilous again? It means that it's potty mouth.
Foul-mouthed and
foul-mouthed and potty mouth. Right, like I'd use expletives, like I always do. Okay.
Yes.
And this is scurrilous, potty mouth, whatever, and it's insane. And I said to him afterwards, Mark, have you seen the tape? Well, this is who this guy is, and that's the kind of commissioner he would have been. All right, you may not like Simon Hare, but we dodged a bullet on that one because of this. Because of this kind of thing. That's the kind of county, and that's the kind of city councilor he still is. We were just talking about this thing yesterday. Boy, Mike, let me get a word in edgewise here, would you? We'll make a noise so the camera goes to you so it looks like you're also on the show.
Hi.
Okay, that's enough. Stop hogging the camera. We were talking about Lisa Shipley.
Hey, you know what? Hey, I tell you, I'm just going to put up a picture of myself.
Oh, man.
And I'll have it intermittently make some noise, and then I'll just go watch TV, and you just call me when the show's over.
No, I'm going to let you wrap up the whole show in the last few seconds.
Oh, no. No, you're on a roll here. Let's hear about Mark Gatlin.
Roll, but okay. And so So we're talking about this thing with Lisa Shipley, and about how she informed the veterans that if they didn't vote for the levy, there might not be any veteran service office anymore. I think she should have been fired immediately. So after we put out that, and after we talked on this show, I went to go see the guys at the meeting of the city council, and I told the same story, slightly different emphasis. And so after I'm gone, at the end, they have their own protected time, like the commissioners do, where the councilors can talk. We can't respond to anything, except they do right at the very end when there's almost nobody there. And so Mark Gatlin apparently says something like, "Well, this is just that same old stuff, and that Dale Matthews will just say about anything." I'm paraphrasing. But yeah, he doesn't really believe any of that. Of course, the fact that we have it on tape, that even Simon Hare says, well, she really shouldn't be doing that on county time. She did that while she was on the county payroll. So this is Mark Gatlin once again. I mean, Mark, it'd be helpful if you'd at least look at her admitting what she did. But he doesn't need any of that. It has to be a lie.
Yeah, because it's counter. It's counter to the to his worldview on it, and that's he's it goes back to what I was saying about people when you're part of this club. And once you're part of this club, then you basically get your talking points from the club, or you just what the talking points are because you're a member of the club. You protect the other members of the club,
Well, I did get a little carried away there, but Mike, you've had a lot to say in the past to me, off camera mainly, about people who have trouble accepting reality and have created this little world around themselves, and how frustrating it is to try to get through to people that even if they have the information, even if they see it with their own eyes, they still don't believe it. Talk about that, would you?
Well, you know what? I have the same feeling about people like that as people who don't vote. I think if you don't vote, you don't have a vote, and so to criticize someone who's bringing you information which is verifiably factual is stupid in the same way. It's like your opinion really doesn't count in that because you're not even willing to consider the facts in that situation. So I don't know. People like that, you just sort of kind of they're interesting and fun to talk about and make fun of, but in terms of taking them seriously in matters like this, they don't count.
Well, for me, the facts are determined by what this little inanimate object shows. And I can have an opinion, and it can be right or wrong, probably wrong. Mike can have an opinion, mostly wrong. But the thing is that once this thing videotapes it, well, not videotapes, video records it, you can't argue with this thing. What, right. You're lying to me? It's an inanimate object. Keith tried to do that. Remember when Keith was saying, well, you put words into my mouth? Well, that was a lot of bull. But it was, and we could show when you laid one on top of the other that the two squiggly line things were exactly alike because there was no editing that was made. But he's still trying. What is this? We're back in the horse and buggy days when you could just say, it's my word against yours. It's not your word against ours anymore. And it's your word against a high-definition recording of what you just said.
Yeah. It's kind of tough to argue with, tough to beat. But that doesn't stop them from attempting to do it. And those same people that we were discussing, it doesn't stop them from denying that it happened, even if they saw the video. So there's a psychological disconnect that is taking place there. And, you can't help those people. You just can't.
You go to a meeting, and I've been at the meeting of the Rotary Club once, and of the Democrat Party a couple of times. And remember when I went to them and I said, but I know this is the truth because I videotaped it. And they said, so? What? My opinion is stronger than an objective videotape? How does that? Where? What worldview is that?
Yeah. I have nothing to add. I mean, what can you do? It's obvious who those people are, but the problem is that they're jaded by ideology, their own worldview. They want to they want to see everything, you know, through a certain lens, and there's not much you can do to help people like that. You have to remove them from it and allow the brainwashing to melt away, and then at some point, you know, maybe they'll be able to see things objectively. But I think that's the problem is that, you know, when you're so steeped in an ideology or a worldview that you can't see what's actually going on here, and it really is going on here. I mean, we have corruption, we have mismanagement, we have wasteful spending. Even though, I mean, people think that that's not happening, that we're on such a tight budget, that we're you know, watching things so carefully. It's not true. It just
Well,
is not true.
this thing with Harry Mackin. Okay, there's the Harry Mackin deal, and I can
Mm-hmm.
understand Harry Mackin has some wiggle room on this. Okay, because we weren't there with the camera. They would never allow a camera at a meeting of the Republican Central Committee or anybody's Central Committee, probably, because they want to talk candidly among themselves. And so here you have two other members of the Republican Central Committee independently who have said that Harry Mackin didn't like the results of a vote that they took, a free and fair Democrat, oh, not Democratic vote, a Republican vote, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, and he didn't like the results, and so he arranged to have the vote reversed. And
Do you happen to remember what specifically what was that about? Do you
I,
remember the?
I don't remember specifically, but I think the vote was about, are they going to allow to have certain signs posted inside Republican headquarters? It
Mm.
was during the election period. And will they or won't they? I think so. But the bigger point to me was that, I don't know. I wasn't there. And as Cheryl Walker would say, you can't report on anything unless you were there in person. Yeah, right. You know, Iraq doesn't exist because I'm not there in person. But when you've got two eyewitnesses, two of them, not what the Courier does, having half of an eyewitness or no witnesses or whatever, we insisted on two, and we got two. I didn't seek them out. They both sought me out, okay, to tell me the story. Now, what I said to Harry Mackin when he didn't like the fact that I quoted what he said, and what I said to his daughter, who came running, unless you tell me the names of those people, why, then you're just a big liar. Yes, that's one way of looking at it. The other one might be, that's not how journalism works, right? So, but she still insists, oh, you're lying about my dad, blah, 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 blah. I'm not the first one that's been accused of lying about her dad. I thought it was an interesting story. His beef is with the people who were seated not inches from him and came to me, ooh, me? Really? The enemy? And told me this story. Okay, so perhaps there's a big political conspiracy, and Harry Mackin should pursue that. And I'm sure the Courier would love to help him with news. Yeah, we don't have a newspaper. Anyway, here's a guy that's got a bit of a beef because there's no videotape. Okay, so all we have is two eyewitnesses from the same Central Committee. I think that's pretty strong. At least it was strong enough for me to say, I know. I didn't say I know this for a fact. I said this was reported to us by two eyewitnesses. That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I could say to his daughter. Okay, so on the other hand, when you have Simon Hare saying on tape, I've been forgiven by the Deacons family, and they sent me a text message, and I'll be happy to share it with you. And then on his way out of the building, before I even got a chance to, someone runs up to him and says, okay, how are you going to share that with us? He said, I'm not going to talk with you.
Right.
And next it will be, I never said it, and he's going to threaten with lawyers, or would drive drunk over to my house. I don't know. But you can't get away with this anymore, you guys. It's just not possible. And whether you like me or not, well, why don't you hate the camera? Because that does you as much good. You said it. That era of being able to just say nothing ever happened Go back to sleep, or you're going to believe me or your lying eyes. That era's over. But it's
Yeah, it
easier
would
to.
be much easier just to stop doing things that are going to make you the subject of a badcounty.com video.
Who would want to be on one of those? Who would want to appear on a show? Oh, we're doing that. But what you really need to put aside that worldview that you can get away with lying if you just say it loud enough.
Yep.